The Uber Mephisto dead, 1 of 3, we've just started. As a quick sidebar, I did this entire Uber Tristram fight and got Diablo down to 1 sliver, and then my connection got interrupted. And then I started another Uber Tristram fight, and then I realized I wasn't recording. So I'm going to go ahead and take the Uber Mephisto portion of the first fight, which is the exact same setup, the exact same gear, the exact same thing that we're trying to do. And I'm just going to give you some of that. Well, what is this? This is Uber Tristram, on what I have very quickly been convinced is the best build for day 1, day 2 Uber Tristram running after you get your keys and your organs done. Now, why was I inspired to do this? Well, Lucky Luciano, and I'll go ahead and put his video right here, right now, just put out a video showing this build with what he considered to be a very cheap day 2, day 1 kind of budget setup for doing Uber Tristram. Now, I looked at it, and I agree with a lot of the pieces that he was wearing, but I think we could do it cheaper. Now, what you're not going to see is the hour and a half I spent trying to do this on basically no budget, using very, very weak rune words, and quite frankly, Uber Tristram just isn't easy enough anymore. It's just that difficult. You really need to have a good setup to be able to accomplish this. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to go over the gear that we're wearing. I'm going to show you the Bale fight. I'm going to go over the special nuances and how we did our skills and that kind of stuff. And I'm going to show Diablo. And then we're going to go over what you should know walking in, what new tips I've come up with since my first video, which I'll also link here, which was our first attempt trying to do this on a much weaker build, and why you need to think about this a lot more than you used to walking into Uber Tristram. So I agreed with Lucky with 4 key pieces of gear that I think are bare minimum necessary to make this work. The first one being an Obedience. Obedience is just too good for the cost. It's got hit recovery. It gives you an enchant once you actually kill some of the minions around the Uber boss itself, which is just giving you more fire damage, as well as reducing enemy fire resistance, which is just helping to bump up your DPS a little bit more. It has big enhanced damage. Now, I'm doing this in a Partisan. You can do this in a much better base, but the Partisan bare minimum is somewhere where I thought, as long as you have at least this, your damage output would be good enough. Come on, Skeleton. Cut it out. The second piece is Lionheart. For the cost of the runes and the fact that it's just a 3-socket base, Lionheart, quite frankly, is the best buy for your money, especially considering all you need to get this is a foul rune, and you could have this within an hour of farming Nightmare Countess on a sorcerer. The last piece will be Cyclopean Roar. Now, Cyclopean Roar is probably hands down the best new starter item. It says enemy physical resistance pierce and cast battle cry for you. On top of that, it has really good stats for the fact that it's just a Jawbone visor. It's going to give you leap speed, fast run walk, +2 to war cry. The battle cry and the enemy physical resistance pierce are the best stats on it, and we put an Ort rune in it just to be able to handle Uber Mephisto. The last piece of gear, and this one is more, it's just a quality of life increase than anything else. I do agree that it's kind of bare minimum, but it's just a bunch of stats. It has Crushing Blow, Deadly Strike, and Chance to Open Wounds. Chance to Open Wounds is super important. Just having that continuous bleed is really, really nice. The Deadly Strike means that on top of the other pieces of gear that we're wearing and the Barbarian Critical Strike, which don't add up, they roll separately, you have a really high chance of doubling your physical damage that you're dealing with your attack. And then Crushing Blow is really important. We want to be getting through that first 65% of the Uber life pool as fast as possible so that we can manage our potion economy. I know a lot of people think that Crushing Blow is a dead stat. It just isn't. It's just so strong you can't have it whittle away all the way down to 0% anymore. Even getting to 65% is very, very important. As a quick aside, the charms that we're using are an approximation of resistance and damage charms. Keep that in mind, right? So these are just the easiest way to stack all res, as well as a smattering of random low damage charms that I think are going to be your best bet for increasing the speed at which you actually finish Uber Tristram. The all res that we have here is actually even overkill, especially considering our skill selection, but we're going to be showing that after the Bale fight, and we'll go into that in more detail. For the last 5 pieces of gear on the main swap, I crafted every piece of it. Why? Because crafting is literally too powerful. You can just make this gear. It requires almost no rune investment, and the results are actually staggering. These are our Deadly Strike, Mana Leech, Resistance gloves. Now these ones originally were made for a build where I was using Double Strike and Frenzy. So these came out with 20 increased attack speed, and then I slammed them for more. These are the new Deadly Strike Perfect Skull Recipe Vampiric gloves, in case anybody didn't know. Our belt is a Chance to Open Wounds Blood belt, so that's going to get us Life Leech, Chance to Open Wounds, and Life. I went and slammed a few of these belts that had decent rolls on them, and the plus 10 to Vitality was the best option that we got, as well as this thing just generated with dual res, 20 cold res, 16 light res. It took crafting 10 belts to get something like this, and then slamming those belts. I went through and crafted blood rings until I had some decent ones. I'd say this took around 30 to 40 crafts, but this is min damage, life leech, 10 strength, all res, and life. I went and slammed the ones that we got that were decent, and I got physical damage taken reduced by 5, which is nice in this example. This was a ring that also rolled, you know, your minimum life leech here, but it rolled attack rating, some elemental damage, and all res, as well as strength as the base roll, and then 17 life, and then we slammed it for additional stats. This is more than good enough to wear here, especially considering we're using leap attack. We don't even really need the attack rating, but this is such a solid piece if you're using any other attack that does. Our final piece of gear on the main swap is just a blood amulet that I crafted, so it has some run walk, which is nice, and then it happened to come with all res as well as additional fire res, and then the life roll was okay. It was above minimum. I didn't even slam this thing. It just says a bunch of all res really when it comes down to it, and a little bit of quality of life stats, and this is also absolutely good enough to do Uber Tristram with on this build. On the swap, and I will go into this in more detail, but probably the second most important piece of gear that we are wearing is a life tap wand. I'll go into the fact of how you want to be using this, what's the best way to use this, as well as some do's and don'ts when it comes to it. In the offhand, and I know you're gonna see it and go, oh my god, it's a heart. What do you mean you're using Heart of the Oak? Wah! You ever try to shop +3 Warcry sticks? It takes a very long time and I didn't find one. So Heart of the Oak has +3 to all skills. I only use this for casting Battle Command and casting Battle Orders and casting Shout. It's +3 to Warcries. I promise you it doesn't impact anything else. Just look at the fact that it gives +3 to our shouts, because we use this on swap. We cast our bow, and then we swap right back. And while I think it's a good place to just get an account of it right now, the rest of the inventory is all full rejuves. I brought in 8 additional mana potions, as well as the 4 on the belt. You're really going to need these for Bale, and also for minimizing your rejuve economy use on fights like Mephisto, because leap attack does use a lot of mana. The Herodric Cube is full of full rejuve potions, as well as a stack of Ort runes and Ral runes. In the last fight, I had 5 pieces of gear break because of the amount of hits that you take and how long the fight is going to last. Let's get into the Bale section of the fight, and I'll show you that, and then we're going to go over the nuances, and then again, I'll show you the Diablo portion of the fight, and I'll go over the do's and don'ts and the hot tips and the things that you really need to know walking into this fight. So, 30 minutes into our second Uber Tristram, and I got connection interrupted again. So I'm gonna go ahead and slice together all of the fights since I have them all fully done. And let's just go over the different things I said I was gonna talk about. Oh my god, that was 2 hours of my life. So why leap attack? First and foremost, leap attack doesn't need to roll to hit. It always hits. You don't need attack rating for leap attack, which means that we're basically cheating by using this skill. But quite frankly, the Uber Tristram is so much stronger now. Cheating is one of the few ways that you're going to be successful. It's okay. They're buffing some parts, they're nerfing some other parts. I promise you it's going to be a bit more manageable. But still, you really need to understand that using the smartest skill is the best way to go here, especially very early on in the ladder. Now, if you're looking at our skill points remaining of 19, while I am a level 99 character, I wanted to simulate what it would be like being a level 80 character for the purpose of leap attack and what your strength should look like going into the fight. So I only used up to the 80 skill points plus the quest rewards that you would get along the way. The most important part here is that we built this to be as tanky as possible because of two very important things. One, your Rejuve potions will just heal more if you are tankier. And two, since we don't need attack rating, we can actually afford to primarily prioritize resistances, tankiness, and then as a subset of stats that we're looking for, damage on leap attack. To that end, we're going to max out battle orders and max out battle command. Not only does battle command increase your damage on weapon, but it's also going to give you +3 to skills everywhere, which is so important to help to maximize what we have available to us and also be able to deal a good amount of damage. I put in enough points into natural resistance so that with battle command, I'm sitting at over 200 lightning resist on the barbarian on our primary swap. The reason why this is so important is that Mephisto's conviction is actually going to be buffed back to the original conviction, so you need to have at least 200 resistance to still be sitting at max resistance when that conviction aura is up. Maximizing polearm and spear mastery, while we don't get any attack rating benefit from this, the enhanced damage benefit and the chance to crit are so paramount here. That 30% chance to roll, in addition to whatever deadly strike you have as a separate roll, means that we are coming close to around 40-ish% chance to crit. For your skills, you're going to go down to leap attack, and if you notice, I actually have more points into leap than leap attack. And why is that? If you look at leap attack, every point that you put in will gain you 8% enhanced damage, yet your synergies will gain you 10% enhanced damage. So, after you get up to 100% ED, it's actually better skill economy to be putting your points into leap to get a higher amount of enhanced damage than it is to continue to max out leap attack. For our stats, we're putting in just enough strength to be able to wear our gear even when swapped. So remember that obedience actually gives you dexterity and strength. So if you only go up to strength like in Gore Riders, when you swap over to whatever is in your offhand, you're actually not going to have enough strength. So I do go up to the 94 strength, and then every other point is going to be put into vitality. With this setup, we are sitting on 2,900 total life. We have, well, it's garbage defense, but shout helps your defense a little bit. And then again, our resistances are overcapped on everything, and even with maximum conviction, we're still at 75 lightning resistance, which is so important. What are the nuances? What should we be doing? How do we make sure that we don't die? In Lucky's video, Lucky does an amazing job of completing this fight without this one key piece of life tap that I think is absolutely commendable. Lucky does have amplified damage as a source on his amulet. He is using Atmas, but I did think that we could A, get away with not using that, and B, it can be hard to find an Atmas whale walking into day 2 or even day 3 unless you're trading. You're not just going to have one right off of the bat. So I wanted to make sure that we could do something where we don't have to rely on key pieces like that, because amplified damage is a massive source of both sustain and damage, and we are making up or mitigating the loss of that, especially with life tap. One of the most important things that I found with life tap is that you need to give yourself a little bit of distance when there are a lot of minions around your Uber boss. To be able to cast life tap safely, you're going to want to recast life tap every 10 to 15 seconds on the Ubers. So you want to make sure that while you're attacking, keep in mind this is, I don't know, it's maybe like 10, 12, 14 leap attacks. You want to go, okay, I have a route away from the boss, which is typically the best way of doing that is actually leaping out to a very far minion. Life tap minions around them, life tap them, and then quite literally leap attack your way over the islands of minions, killing them, getting your life back, and then re-engaging with the Uber boss themselves. This way you're clearing out minions, you're keeping yourself alive as long as possible, and you're maximizing the life tap length. Now, if there aren't a lot of minions around the Uber boss, you're going to want to just stand right next to them, life tap them, and then continue attacking. You don't want to do this whole grand exit strategy because you're just losing out on time that you could be attacking and leeching life again. I do think it's worth the time to pull Mephisto up to this area specifically right here, as close to this wall as you can manage. This means that the majority of his minions will actually spawn inside of here so that you do not have to deal with them. And them sitting in there doesn't pose a threat to you, and it also means that there's less minions being spawned out here. Now, realistically, I'd like to fight all of the bosses up here, especially Diablo, but since they're very picky about whether or not they're going to chase you, I find that engaging on the other Ubers as fast as possible helps to minimize the minions around them, which are ultimately really the biggest threat to you being able to stay alive, especially since we're using life tap. I cannot stress this enough. Your gear is going to break during this fight. Again, I had 5 pieces of gear that absolutely broke on me, and if I did not have runes in my inventory, I would not be able to continue this fight. Bring a stack of Ral runes, and bring a stack of Ort runes. Ort runes are also especially helpful in case you're getting a little overzealous with your life tap charges to repair your wand and completely refill all of the life tap charges that have been used on it. But the Ral runes in your Horadric Cube are a bare minimum needed piece during this point, especially if you're using a hyper budget build like I am, where your damage output is very minimized due to a lack of core or key high damage output pieces. Something that happened to me a couple times that I wanted to touch on was running low on Rejuve potion economy. There is at least one thing that we can do about this. It will increase the length of the fight, but quite frankly, if you have nothing else, this is a good way of doing it. Casting life tap on a minion that you can deal damage to and dragging it away from your Uber boss allows you to then leap attack up to your maximum hit points. And this does mean that if you completely run out of rejuves, as long as you have an open space to fight, you can drag one minion away, life tap them, get up to max health, re-life tap the Uber, and then jump back into the fight and at least fight them until your life tap runs out again. Now, this is getting very dangerous, but if you run out of rejuve potions, this is something that you can do, and I hope that this saves at least one person's attempt when you get down to Uber Diablo or Uber Baal, whoever's left, and you accidentally use way too many potions on Uber Mephisto, and you're just like, ah, geez, I don't want to give up. Remember that life tap can be your friend here. The last thing that I will say is that if you have an Uber Baal that has spawned a Baal minion, while they're not the most dangerous, they can be spamming the Drain Mana Hose, which will absolutely disrupt your rejuve economy. You have to be leap attacking the entire time to keep yourself safe, and if you cannot leap attack, you cannot continue the fight. So if you can manage it, try to keep them as close together as possible so that your leap attack is hitting both of them, which will not only increase your life tap life leech, but will also eventually kill the minion without having to specifically focus fire them down. Specifically talking about Bale, one of the few things that I wish that I brought in here was one more additional source of Mana Leech, and Lucky actually does an amazing job of pointing out that an Eye of Mordini, an incredibly generic and incredibly common ring, does come along with a good amount of Mana Leech. So I would recommend, if none of your pieces have additional Mana Leech, to bring in something like that. Take one item slot instead of a Rejuve Potion, bring in your Eye of Mordini, and swap out to that. But as you can see from the fights that we did, you don't need to have amplified damage to do this fight. You don't need Light Absorb like on a T-Gods. You don't need something like a String of Ears. You don't even really need Gore Riders, and you don't need ridiculous slams to make any of these work. On top of that, you don't even need elite bases for the Obedience. I recommend making one because you might want to use this for more than just fighting the Uber Tristram, but if you're trying to get to the bare minimum of what you need, it would be these 3 pieces, a Life Tap Wand, and then everything else can be crafted gear, or it can just be good uniques or set items that you've found. Remember that you don't need attack rating. And then a Warcry stick instead of this Heart of the Oak, and then any smattering of additional resistance and damage gear that you can get down in your charms. I want to be abundantly clear, this is in no way, shape, or form attempting to say that I think that Lucky did this wrong, and in fact, Lucky's build is just stronger and better. I totally agree. If I was going to do this, I would much rather be using some higher end gear than the ones that I currently have equipped. This video is, one, just supposed to be a day of reflection after our first attempt of trying to do the Ubers, and now walking in with the build that I highly recommend as your starter build for doing this. But also, what you can strip away from a build and still be able to do this, considering Uber Tristram is now so much harder for casual players to be able to get through walking into Season 3. I hope this helps. Again, I'm going to link to Lucky's video. I'll also put it down in the description, because I do think that the setup that he has is just stronger and will make the fight go faster for you. I hope that you enjoyed this. If you had any questions, please feel free to either ask them below in the comments or hit me up on my live stream, which is also linked below. We will be streaming, Season 3 all the way through, and you're going to see this exact action on the live stream. Also, if you think that there are any other really budget options that I could have explored here or I missed, also let me know down in the comments. I think this is as bare minimum super stripped down as you can get it, and I hope that I'm wrong, because I'd like to find more ways to help casual players be able to get into the endgame and get themselves a torch and get themselves rolling on the builds that they really want to play. Thank you, and I wish you luck in your Uber Tristram fight walking into Season 3. I'll see you in the next video.